This is Eric Thomas. Join us Monday nights at 10 and Sunday mornings at 7 for Raceline Radio, presented by Subaru. Powered by the heart-pounding turbocharged WRX on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
Hello and welcome to the Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. I'm your host, Walu. A reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360 Monday to Friday between 2 and 3 p.m. To people watching, hello. I am joined today by the Fan Morning Show's Blake Murphy.
Blake Murphy.
Little dedication on the drop today for Takeshi. We were messaging about that Utah dunk last night.
Oh, yeah?
Or this morning, rather, and he messaged me, and he was like, are you going to talk about it on Blake Murphy Tuesday? That's right. That's right, Takeshi.
Yeah, Takeshi's our biggest fan. And we'll get to that because we're going to cover all aspects of the Raptors. 133-97 win over the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, the Nets were not their best, and the Raptors clearly needed a feel-good win. I think that qualifies as a feel-good win. But before we start, actually, Blake, before we actually get to the topic of basketball, I actually just revealed on the show yesterday that I once sold knives as one of my teenage jobs. Yes, I was a traveling knife salesman. So I want to ask you, Blake, what's the most random job that you've worked?
I've worked just about every job. I would say the weirdest one is probably I was a window washer, like one of those people that goes up a couple floors and is on a rickety ladder and is washing the windows of rich people. I did work as an extra in TV and movies when I lived in Vancouver because it pays really well.
Really?
Yeah, I was a student and I wasn't union or anything, so I didn't get the free meals or whatever. But I think it was $20 an hour while I was a master's student. It's and I could have a book on me and stuff, and then it's just stand around for 3 hours and then walk in the background of this scene.
Is there anything even marginally famous or notable?
Yeah, so there are two. There's the hit USA Network show Psych. I was in one of those. You could, if you knew you were looking for me, you could see me in that episode.
Okay.
And I was in the remake of Godzilla, but it was just somewhere in a giant crowd getting destroyed, and I have never been able to pick myself out.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm really happy I asked you this question because I don't know, I just had a feeling that you would be one of those guys that had done a lot of little odd jobs here and there.
I have had a job consistently since the first day of grade 9.
That's pretty wild.
What was
your first job?
My first job, other than a paper route and babysitting, was I was a dishwasher at a Holiday Inn in Cambridge.
Yeah.
Worked my way up all the way to line cook eventually.
This guy had the Chris Boucher trajectory.
And then my parents got separated, so they couldn't give me rides to work anymore. And it was too late on a school night to get the bus home. So,
all right, this is already too sad. I want to go back to the Nets game. Positive vibes of the Raptors winning by 36 points, Blake.
Look, man, to be clear, both my parents are happy now. It's fine. They both remarried. It's all good.
All right, that's fair. Yeah. Okay, all right. My parents have been very stable for my entire life, so this just makes me feel uncomfortable to talk about. But obviously, we're here to talk about the Raptors. And so the win last night, hard transition here. Two stats I wanted to throw out there right away. 17 steals was their most in a game this season. Since October, they had 18 against Indiana and then 17 against Boston. Those are both in the first 7 or 8 games of the season. So 17 steals last night. Very impressive total. In addition to that, they had a season-high 35 assists. Their next highest total this season is 30, which they've recorded twice as recently as early in the month against Chicago in February, last month, I guess. So, yeah, pretty good win. The Raptors kind of win from start to finish, and I think one of the things that stand out just at the start of the game is just how much they pressed. And I want to ask you, Blake, how much of that is a sustainable strategy, or how much can they scale that strategy up even more? Obviously, yesterday against the Nets, they didn't have a lot of their solid ball handlers. I would say probably their top 3 ball handlers, if you consider if they were all potentially healthy, which they haven't been this season, but Simmons, Kyrie, and Kevin Durant. But at the same time, the Raptors have gotten good success with this press.
They certainly have, and you see Nick Nurse go to it when they want to muck up a game, and a little bit to when those bench units play that they're just not going to have a chance in the half court, right? And the odd time they do score, there's a dead ball in the other team's zone. They'll go to a press or a zone press or something like that just to slow them down, right? We know over the course of a shot clock, efficiency goes down, and that's not uniform, and you got to obviously look at the specifics, but generally, if you're forcing a team, especially a bench unit or a shorthanded team like Brooklyn, later and later in the clock, they're making tougher decisions and they're taking worse shots. So you see it on a night like last night, and it's obviously great. Like Bruce Brown and James Johnson are having to dribble the ball to try and break these presses at times. And you know, I like Cam Thomas and Big Kess as guys, but not as guys who have to handle the ball for 25 minutes right now against a good defense. So in terms of can it scale, is it sustainable? Well, the answer to that is if they use a 10-man rotation like they did last night, it probably is, but that's an exhausting approach. And when we looked at this team early in the season, when a couple bench guys started clicking, Utah came back, Delano Banton looked like he's in the rotation, and this is even before Thad Young. Some of our thinking was, hey, maybe you could go with, you know, normal. Most coaches want like probably a 9-man rotation ideally, but if you go 10 or 11, maybe you can give these guys shorter bursts. And you can do the kind of chaos all out. You're going to press. You're going to switch all over the place. You're going to gamble a lot and recover, because if you're running a deeper rotation, you can manage around some of the exhaustion of that. Now, fast forward or rewind, if they're back to a 7-man rotation and everyone's playing 40 minutes, no, I don't think you can do that. I think guys like the Raptors are very likely one of the, if not the best conditioned team in basketball, you know, a top 5 conditioned team with the minutes these guys play. But I think that there is a limit to that, and you'd see it by the fourth quarter, right? If you're trying to defend like that, even you look at some of the games that they've played against top offenses where their defense really has to lock in and has been successful. And it's exhausting, man. These guys play a tough style. So yeah, it requires you to play 10 or 11 guys.
Which they did yesterday.
Which is, you can absolutely do when you're up 36 against the Long Island Nets.
Oh, yeah. No, that's tough. That was a Big Kess, by the way. That can't be a nickname. It's not a real nickname, right?
That is only from the fan morning show. It's one of the rare young guys that JD and I agree on. It's him and Herb Jones are the two, because he always gives me a hard time that I like every young player and can find something I like about every young player.
But to be fair, this rookie class is like sensational.
Yeah. This rookie class defensively is way ahead of where rookies normally are. Like, I don't want to derail this with Herb Jones talk or Io talk, but those guys are good, and Scottie's looking good too. And obviously, you know, no one needs to hear about Evan Mobley more because we know what's going on there. But man, you see like a guy like Scottie had 28, 16, and 4 or 5 steals last night. And it's like, yeah, that's probably the runner-up for Rookie of the Year. It's like how, I don't know. I can't imagine those stat lines are put up often by guys who aren't walking away with that award. No,
this is actually one of the rookie classes where like how far down the draft do you have to feel like pessimistic about the guy you took? If you look in this draft, order,
I think the first guy you probably hit, and maybe I'm missing someone, but I want to say Moses Moody is the first guy where you're like, maybe not. Like even Davion Mitchell,
even him not playing, I understand a little bit more.
Yeah,
because of the fact that the Warriors are so successful. Even in the short since I've seen him play, like I watched that Dallas game where they were up the whole game and then they lost in the fourth quarter, randomly, but. Like I thought he played even well in that game too. Yeah, but
even like Davion Mitchell and Zaire Williams, who stand out as like the guys who maybe, you know, haven't reached that same level yet. Like Zaire's playing 22 minutes a game and is starting half the time. And Davion Mitchell, like not only does he have the best nickname in basketball, Off Night, the defense, like it's not at the level of those couple guys we just mentioned, like Herb and Io and Mobley, but he's been really interesting. So yeah, probably a little higher than Moody is Book Night. That's probably the one guy.
That's the one I'm
shocker that the Charlotte Hornets are the team that we're looking at for that.
They just love drafting undersized offense first shooting guards. Like that's like
infinite Jeremy Lambs and Malik Monks.
Yeah, that's like that's just their type. Like, you know, the Raptors are 6'9" ball handlers who don't shoot.
Yes. 6'4" shooters who can't pass
or defend. Yeah. So no, but seriously though, this is I mean, it goes without saying.
Yeah, and then you can go down even further than that, and like the next one you hit is like, I don't know, Kai Jones at 19.
Yeah. No, this is a great draft.
And even Kai Jones was like, everyone knew that was going to be a longer term thing. So this is a really strong draft.
Yeah, you got Bones Highland at 26.
Bones.
You know, you got Io early in the second round, 38.
Quentin Grimes somewhere.
Yeah.
Who's been a contributor. Yeah.
All right. We're going to go back to this game. It's not, maybe this is indicative of this game not being the most thrilling, just because of the fact that it was so one-sided. But let's talk about Scottie then. Okay. So my question to you is, how do you get Scottie to do this consistently? As you mentioned, 28 points. Now, he's had 28 twice in the last 3 games, right?
Mhm.
Obviously, the first time he did it, it was not as notable just because the Raptors got washed. But, you know, I think for me, it's just looking at this game for Scottie, the activity was off the charts. Like right from the opening tip, he strips James Johnson and then goes in for the dunk, tries to posterize James, and James Johnson gives a foul. By the way, shout out James Johnson for committing every type of foul possible in yesterday's game.
Technical, flagrant, common.
This guy had a hat
Did he
trick.
have a what was he missing? Clear path foul? That's all. What the old Mario Lemieux hat trick of you score like penalty shot, empty net, power play, penalty kill, even strength or something like that. James Johnson's trying to foul out with a different kind of foul every time.
Yeah, there was a lot of varieties to what he was doing, but yeah, Scottie's energy though, like phenomenal. He was one of the main guys in terms of like, not necessarily, he was not always at the head of the press, but he was often you know, reaching in from behind, not even just against James Johnson, but you had one against Cam Thomas where kind of let Cam kind of slightly go past him. And then as soon as he got the shoulders past him, he like punched in from behind at the ball and freed the ball up. And I think the Raptors got out in transition there. So how do you get Scottie to do this consistently?
Yeah, I think the big thing that stands out, first of all, is 7 offensive rebounds in the first half, right? And
6 of those were tip-ins.
yeah,
Just in the first half alone.
Hey,
by
that's
the
a
way.
good way to help your field goal percentage, right?
Absolutely.
You want to shoot 10 of 10 in a half and get those percentages up. So the 7 offensive rebounds in a half, that's only been topped 4 times this year in the entire NBA. And it's Steven Adams, who is all over every offensive rebound leaderboard.
Yeah.
Jaren Jackson, Clint Capella, and then Hernan Gomez has one mixed in there.
Oh, okay.
Which is, sure.
Which one?
Sure.
The actor or the
Willie.
Oh, the other.
Yeah.
Okay.
He had 8 offensive rebounds and 4 defensive rebounds in 12 minutes in the first half against Houston a while back, which
Impressive.
was wild to see. But yeah, so 7 offensive rebounds is a great place to start, right? And you obviously see that it wasn't just getting on the glass. It was a lot of the fact that there were even opportunities in the first place where Scottie hustling on defense, or as the Nets were kind of lazing their way up the court and just kind of causing chaos. So I actually think this is a great set of tape for Nick Nurse or whoever his assistant is to sit down with him and be like, look, man, Nick Nurse's quote after the game, he got 28 points. They ran no plays for him.
Yeah.
There is obviously 7 offensive rebounds aren't going to come every night. You're not going to have this great a garbage man night every time out. But you look ahead, hey, Pascal will be back at some point. OG will be back or Pascal will be back to himself at some point. OG will be back. Fred will be back. How does Scottie Barnes keep up the momentum? And it's like, well, how many of those plays last night couldn't come in the natural flow of an offense?
Right.
A couple of them, because more shots will go down if you have Fred and OG in the mix and stuff like that. And he might not have the ball quite as much. And look, he had 4 assists to 5 turnovers. A lot of that was in the second half. I think he got the green light to have some fun. Throwing the ball around a little bit. But yeah, there's no reason he can't be a very, very good rebounder for this team, a team that needs it. And then, yeah, I think the touch he's starting to show around the rim is really encouraging too. And to me, what I'm most encouraged by probably from those 2 28-point bursts and the improved finishing in these couple games at the break is he looks fresh.
He looks very fresh. Yeah. And I think, look, we've talked about this before, but just the difference in workload to go from college to the pros. And then, I mean, if he's not the outright leader in rookie minutes played, he has to be top 3 at least.
Yeah, minutes per game, you got to go back to Dame for the last time someone averaged this many.
I'm just talking, even in this rookie class,
Yeah.
we talked about there's
Franz
a lot of
Wagner is the only one ahead of him in total minutes, and that's because
Franz is good too.
Yeah, and he hasn't. I don't know if he's missed a game, but yeah, he's the leader in total minutes.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, look, it's just a big, heavy workload. So
Yeah.
I think it's not a coincidence that he started like this. Like this game reminded me a lot of that first game that he had a breakout, which was against Boston. Like that game, he had more of like the mid-range jumpers or whatever. And
you mean the first game of the early on?
Yeah.
When he caught Horford on his heels with the pull-ups and stuff like that.
Yeah, like it, but I think it's just the energy and like the all-out, like the rebounding. I think he had like 12 or 13 or something in that game. This game he had 16 rebounds.
We need to do 10 more minutes on how the Celtics defense isn't actually good when they play a team like the Raptors. They just can't. Sorry, but yeah. So
no, they do scare me a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie to you.
Their defense is on another level right now. So Scottie's up to, by the way, 70th percentile among forwards in terms of volume of attempts at the rim and 74th percentile in terms of finishing at the rim among forwards.
That's
so
great.
That's really good. That's per cleaning the glass. That filters out some of the garbage time and stuff. So yeah, in terms of the scoring, yeah, he's cooled off a little bit from the start of the year in terms of some of the mid-range package and stuff. But this is a guy
also giving him that like freedom to do that as much, right? Which you could always kind of see coming with Pascal getting more healthy. Like those are just a lot of those areas that Pascal's going to operate in. But there's still other ways for Scottie to get just easy buckets. And I think, look, there's maybe a bias towards people like valuing hard buckets more than easy buckets. Whereas I think it's actually counterintuitive in terms of just like, if you can consistently create easy buckets, that's how you stay very effective. Because if you're only relying on hard baskets, like unless you're like the super elite superstars of the world, like that's not a very good skill set.
Yeah, it's a skill to create easy buckets, right? And this is like, it's tough sometimes to figure out where the line is or where the tipping point is, because when we look at college prospects, we want to see difficult buckets, right? We want to see self-creation and a difficult load, because that is something that maybe helps us project forward. Like, hey, the difficulty jump won't be as tough. You look at Cade, and he's in a horrible spacing environment last year, and our Canadian boy Moncrief is just missing every open three that Cade sets him up for. And you know, you look at that and it's like, okay, I could see how this would work, even if it's an environment like Detroit. Like, he'll figure it out. He's figuring it out here. But you look at a guy who, you know, pick another prospect who's more catch and shoot oriented, and maybe he's the third option on his college team, and they're a powerhouse. Yeah, and Kispert's starting to figure it out now.
Yeah, a little bit.
But yeah, it took a lot more of an adjustment period, and his role right now is like still fairly like play finisher. So yeah, I think there's having a nose for garbage buckets is one way to do it. Having a way to create easier buckets for yourself, it's a skill, and it's something that, like, you know, we watched DeMar figure it out over a long time. We're watching, this is the first season I'd say where Fred has figured it out. Like, he gets into those like smooth pull up elbow jumpers. If a big's too low, he finds opportunities for his layups to improve his finishing and stuff. And that's a good sign for him. And again, some of the stuff that Scottie did last night is, you can find that any game.
Yeah, exactly. Although,
so there you go, 28 and 16 every night, please.
At minimum, without a play run for you. No, I think, look, this is, as much as anything else, it just comes down to the energy that he's playing with right now.
Yeah.
And it's great to see. I would love to see more of it, and it's exciting. Another guy who was pretty exciting last time, Malachi Flynn.
Yeah.
I was super happy for him, just because he's had a tough year. His true shooting, I think, is in the 40s, right? And so he hasn't had as many opportunities to come in and do whatever, but came in last night and genuinely did a phenomenal job. I thought he was the best guard on the floor. And look, guys were hurt. Kyrie was out. You know, Fred was out. You know, those are some pretty good guards that would typically be the best guard on the floor. However, you look at the game, it still had Gary Trent Jr., it still had Seth Curry, Patty Mills. Like, look, if Malachi had like a Patty Mills trajectory, I don't think anyone would be upset with that whatsoever. Although they're very different players, but still. He had a great game. 18 points, was efficient, was 5 of 5 to start the game, finished 7 of 11, had a bunch of steals. And I think for me, my favorite part about his game was just he kept using his quickness to get downhill. And I think if there is one advantage that Malachi has in terms of just when you're looking at how he can create for himself and others, it's got to be that quickness.
Yeah, it's maybe a tough adjustment for him too, because he is, I think, by nature more of a between the tempos point guard, right? Like, he wants to survey the floor, he wants to operate a pick and roll, and he wants to be like kind of a more like slow it down system oriented. Like, I think younger Fred is like how he likes to play. They're not similar players in terms of strengths and weaknesses, but he is a between the tempos guy, and they have asked him for 2 years now, hey, pick it up. And that's on defense. We want you in the ball more. We want you into jerseys more. We don't want, you know, I've talked about this a bunch. There's a couple different ways to use good defense, right? And one of them is keep your man in front of you. You can be a little more conservative. You're going to be able to contest the shots. And the other way is, hey, trust that you can make up for it if you gamble wrong, and use those gambles, use that length, trust the guy next to you. And I think Malachi's had a tough time with that. And Malachi, when he's in the second unit, has had a bit of a tough time with those units operate in chaos, right? Like, you get Banton, Barnes, and Achiuwa out there, Banton, Boucher, and Achiuwa, and nothing really makes sense, right? Like, you don't know what's happening. Like, it's a lot of improvisation and randomness, and I think Malachi is kind of a more system style guy. So it's been an adjustment period for him. I also think you see, this is only the second time all year he's had 3 straight games of double-digit minutes. And I don't think it's look, you can't keep a guy playing forever if he's not figuring out and he's not contributing. But I do think that giving a young guy like this who's had a lot of up and down, a little bit of leash here and to grab him and say, hey, look, man, for the next couple weeks, you're the backup point guard and you're going to get your spots and don't look over your shoulder. And we'll see how it, obviously you got to improve and we'll see how it goes. And you're not locked into the spot, but you don't have to look over your shoulder if you make a turnover that Delano's coming in second half. And that's maybe not fair to Delano, but Delano could use the 905 time anyway. So I think that's good. I think you look back to last year and over the last 24 games of the season, Malachi averaged 13, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio.
Yeah.
That was in a tank scenario, whatever. But you know what's hard for a point guard when
running pick and rolls with Aaron Baines and
when
Tim
all
Birch,
your teammates are
Freddie
sitting, all
Gillespie.
your good teammates are sitting, right?
Yeah.
So that is a real factor that yes, he wouldn't get that many, he wouldn't be able to take 11 shots a game in a normal environment and he wouldn't be able to take 5 threes a game, but he'd also have more capable players around him. So I was encouraged by that and mostly just happy for him. If he can get to where he can give them 15 minutes a game, I think that helps what these rotation patterns look like a lot.
You know who has been a long admirer of Malachi Flynn, dating back to even training camp.
In summer league as well, we saw that clearly you're a very high-skilled player, right? You have a lot in your bag. You got the pull-up jumper, mid-range from 3. You got the floater game. The hesitation move. Honestly, you got all the moves.
I was describing him like he was Allen Iverson, but I mean, in any case, though, he is a very skilled player, and I think, look, it's a kind of a change of pace to what the Raptors usually do.
Yeah,
right? Because you're usually used to lanky forwards and there's playmaking ability using their length, using their quickness, using whatever, but it still can look awkward and ragged, even when it works, right? And I think there's just something about Malachi when he comes in. Obviously, the efficiency is not as good as it was last night. If it was, then he'd be in the rotation, no doubt. But
he'd be in someone's rotation.
He would.
I don't know if it'd be this one if he had nice high value at the deadline. We'd see.
Wow, yeah. Well, anyway, but in any case, so Masai said they believed in him. Okay, that's true. They didn't end up trading him, but when he comes into the game, it is a difference between he's polished, he's composed, and he can give you sort of more of that traditional guard making skill set that, quite frankly, on this team, it is very lacking. Now, I think the key for him is just he's got to knock down his threes consistently. I thought that was big for him yesterday, 3 of 5. I love that sequence where in the third quarter, I think Kessler, your guy, Big Kess, gets the rebound. Malachi comes in with 2 hands from behind and just yanks the ball away from, literally wrestles it away from him. Gets the ball back out. The ball eventually swings to him open on the 3-point line. He takes the shot. He misses it. Precious it's the rebound. And Malachi immediately relocates to the opposite wing, gets the pass, and with no hesitation, after missing a 3 3 seconds before that, launches another one and makes it. If he can consistently hit the 3, then we're talking about a situation where Nick has a lot more incentive to put him in.
And him being able to shoot the 3 opens up the possibility for him to play some minutes alongside Fred or alongside Delano, right? Because then he can work off the ball a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Whereas right now, you kind of have to have the ball in his hands, which is not how they really like their second units to play. And if you're looking for signs for encouragement, it was only 6 games, but he shot 41% on threes in the G League last year. He shot, what did he shoot? 39% over the 2 preseasons he's had, which is another 50 shot sample. He shot it well at Summer League, another 41%. And again, these are all small samples, but so is his NBA sample. So
fair enough.
He's only, he's taken 230 threes in the NBA at 31%. That's not very good, but you add in some of these other samples, and Summer League and the G League aren't the same competitive environment, but it's the same 3-point line. And then, that sample starts to look like 33, 34. And I think mechanically, it's good.
That's the thing that we've always been confused about.
I like the way his pull-up looks. I made this joke on the air this morning that he is the worst 3-point shooter of all time for someone whose mechanics are perfect.
Yeah. No, it's a very good looking shot.
Yeah.
Actually, the last thing before we get to the break, what's gone into Precious Achiuwa? His turnaround has been great. Let me just read you some numbers. First 13 games of the season, Precious Achiuwa shot 35% from the field. Okay? It was clearly a big adjustment coming over from Miami. Last year in Miami, from what I understand, his role was exclusively putbacks, lob dunks. That's it. That's it. You don't have any other responsibilities, right? You don't have a license to take any other shots. He comes in to start the season, 35%. Offensively was a bit of a mess. The pick and roll chemistry with Fred was not there. He was taking a couple of shots out of turn, out of order, whatever. last 38 games, and he missed the whole section there. I forgot what injury did he have? He missed like
Shoulder. He had the
shoulder.
I think it was the shoulder thing.
Well, in any case, so yeah, he missed like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or whatever. He comes back since that injury, and I guess maybe even just sort of like him getting used to playing with the team. The last 38 games, shooting 47% from the field, which for a center is still somewhat low, but you have to consider the fact that he's also shooting threes occasionally as well. And to be honest, this surprised me. Last 38 games, he's shooting 38% from three. Now, it's only 1.4 attempts per game, but it's something that's like promising enough that you would want to see more of from him. And last night he hit, I believe, 3 threes. So what's gone into Precious Achiuwa?
I mean, some of it's got to just be confidence, right? And that runs the risk of being a little reductive. But we talk about leash with Malachi Flynn, right? And Precious has basically all season, mostly because of injuries other places, but he's never had to question if he's getting in that night and if there's a role for him. He's played every game, he's been available. And I do think that there's something to that. Obviously, he's a young enough player that they're still working on his development as he goes. So I'm sure there's some skill side stuff they're working on. And yeah, there's a comfort level with, hey, Fred knows how to get him involved. Pascal knows how to get him involved. Guys know where to look for him. I think him and Boucher have a really nice chemistry. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
It doesn't make any sense, but it works.
But they can find each other. And I think Thad, like almost right away, is like, oh, I know how to get these young guys bucket. Like he's finding Chris Boucher on cuts that Chris Boucher isn't aware Chris Boucher's open sometimes.
Sure.
And some of them are going out of bounds. So yeah, and look, the thing with Precious, and I think this is why the Raptors see him as worth developing, is the defensive potential is obvious. He needs to be a better defensive rebounder. He's not quite a traditional rim protector because he just doesn't have quite that size.
The numbers are good, though.
The numbers are good.
Yeah.
And you can see, like, he fits their vision of what a defense could look like when you have all these big forwards, because he can be a quote-unquote center, but switch all around as needed, and he can do the trap or hedge, and he can recover. The bar for him offensively is not that high for him to be a useful piece, right? So even you mentioned that stretch of games, he's improved to shooting 64% at the rim over that stretch. Perfect. That's only 34th percentile for bigs.
No, but that's good enough, man.
That's a lot better than 10th percentile.
Yeah, he was really shooting 50% at the rim like Fred for a while. It was concerning at the start of the year. But no, I think, look, this is something I asked Bobby about when he did one of his trade deadline interviews. And he talked about it. He's just like, Precious is acclimating to the team. He's getting more comfortable, knows where the shots are coming from. And then naturally, you're starting to see some of the talent elements break through. Because there's 1 or 2 plays a game for Precious that I'm just genuinely excited about.
You can go back to, I remember like trading clips with you from the Nigeria games in the summer where like most of it was defensive, but there was some real like, hey, he's grabbing a defensive rebound and trying to go the distance of the floor. Yeah. And look, the stage he's at developmentally, all you really want to see is that he's comfortable grabbing and going, right? Like you're not looking for him to go through the whole defense and Euro step and finish. Like, let's be realistic about where he is. But the fact that there's a confidence level there and enough of a handle that like you could absolutely see what this team thinks he could be a year and a half, 2 years from now. Yeah. You know, maybe they hit a point in their timeline as a team next year where we just kind of not in a spot to be that patient. But certainly a year like this, like he's a much better player today than he was when they got him. And I think that's what they're going to bank on continuing to happen.
Yeah, I'm really happy with Precious as a prospect at the moment. Back-to-back 20-point games, I believe for the first time in his career. And Raptors win by 36 points. They're going to play the Brooklyn Nets once again. What do you think? A lot more zone? You think they zone for the whole game this time? They zone for the whole second half and a little bit of the second quarter too. But
but you don't think the Raptors will hit 18 of 38 on threes again?
I was genuinely very impressed with the fact that you got 8 threes from Thad Young, Precious Achiuwa, and Chris Boucher. I'm not sure
what did Nick Nurse say about Thad Young's threes after the game? Someone was like, he hadn't shot that many threes in a long time, and Nick Nurse was like, yeah, we're gonna change that. Yeah, like sure, if you keep knocking them down.
Yeah, fair enough. It's never too late in your career to add something new. You know, age 35 season, he's going to become a corner 3-point specialist now.
Who knows who we'll even see tonight? It might be an all Precious lineup. It's because Fred, OG, and DJ Wilson all questionable.
That's right, and we'll talk about that on the other side of this break. You've been listening to the Raptors Show on Sportsnet 590, The Fan. Welcome back to the Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. I'm your host, Walu. I continue to be joined by the Fan Morning Show's Blake Murphy, and we continue to talk about the Toronto Raptors as always. So one news to pass along, and we saw him in the game yesterday, obviously, but the Raptors have now signed DJ Wilson to a third 10-day contract. So they clearly like him, and I don't know for what reason, but I decided to read the DJ Wilson Wikipedia page today. Maybe because there weren't that many topics to prepare for, but ultimately I read the Wikipedia page. I was happy to do it because there's a lot of news and notes in there that I did not know about in terms of his background. 2 items here, both relating to his injury history, which I genuinely did not know. And reading about it, I'm really happy that he's overcome those and he's had a career and he's with the Raptors, and we'll see if he gets assigned for the rest of the season. But, you know, if I had to guess, probably. In 2012, summer of 2012, he had a 5th lumbar vertebra stress fracture. He fractured his spine.
Mm-hmm. And I think grade 10 is that.
Yes.
Was that for him?
He spent 3 months in a back brace from his hips to his chest. Like, that is just unbelievable. And I can't believe that he was able to play at a high level even after that. That shows such a amount of toughness for him.
What I don't understand, too, is, like, I've never had a serious back injury or whatever, but he had his big, like, growth spurt to become a power forward after that.
That's right. Yeah, he grew like 5 or 6 inches after suffering a stress fracture in his spine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then when he got to college, right, he played at Michigan. Upon his arrival, he was diagnosed with valgus deformity, which is commonly known as knock-kneed, and his neuromuscular therapy that he received afterwards helped him increase his vertical jump by 8 inches. So when he got, they were like, well, you know, we could fix this condition of yours. And again, similar to the stress fracture in his spine, he was able to grow in that sense. This time he's able to jump.
But then he got hurt again.
And
So
wow. I mean, he's overcome a lot in his career. And it doesn't make me root for him more. Like, I'm rooting for all these guys, really. But like, it's something I didn't know about him. And
it's tough,
pretty
man.
impressive.
You overcome all that in high school. You get to college, and like part of why you're playing is why you're not playing is because you were, you know, a 3 to 4 star recruit, depending on where you look, and you're at a big program like Michigan. But yeah, you keep getting banged up. You have a finger surgery, and then the knee issue, and then you get hurt again, and then I think he got hurt 2 more times after the knock-knee thing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so the next season, it's basically like, okay, you're redoing your freshman year, and he's still in that bench role. And then my biggest association with DJ Wilson is like, he's one of the best examples, and who knows, maybe it'll end up being right because he'll be an NBA guy, but he's like one of the big red flags for me of like, don't fall in love with a guy just from March Madness. Because 2016, 2017, he did have that really, really good year for Michigan. I was like, ooh, this is a fun guy. I really like this guy. I had heard, you know, he's got the good vibes thing going on. And then anytime he went down to the G League over the last couple of years when he was with Milwaukee, he killed it and looked like a guy who could be playing. So I know he hasn't had the steadiest of, like, he hasn't even played 50 games in a season before, and maybe there's some health stuff there, or you know, honestly, like developmentally, he just turned 26, but look at how much of his time since grade 10 we just said has been lost to injury. Like maybe there's developmental runway here to still tap into. We talk about often like it's the kind of anti Stanley Johnson, where it's like, yeah, Stanley Johnson's young, but he's played heavy minutes in the NBA forever.
That's right. Yeah.
And the opposite of that is a guy like DJ Wilson, who he's a little older by prospect status. Like, the reason they had to sign him to another 10-day is he's not 2A eligible. He's been in the league too long. This is his fifth NBA season, but he's maybe not as far along as you might think because he keeps getting derailed by injuries and stuff. So, and then also, like, he played for Milwaukee and they did not send him to the G League, but let's be honest. That's a team that was in win now mode his entire time there. And we've seen with the Raptors, when they're in that window, you do take some developmental concessions at times.
Right.
And, you know, guys are left to, hey, you got to do it through the G League. You got to do it through those 3-on-3 sessions with Malcolm Miller and Jordan Lloyd and Chris Boucher we watch before every finals game. Sometimes that's how it's got to be. So I'm rooting for him. I think, you know, if he weren't a power forward, I would be like, yes, absolutely. Sign him, finish it. I don't know what you're pointing at.
Oh,
you
I think on the TV, I think there's a promo of us. So
I'm just there you go. I thought you were
going. Sorry,
I thought you were doing something with the basketball. That you were going to start like spinning on your finger or something.
No. If I had any basketball skill, I wouldn't be doing this.
Anyway, if DJ Wilson were not a power forward on a team made exclusively of power forwards, I would be all over it. Like, yes, you You sign him right now. Always a guy that I've enjoyed as a person and to root for his story. And then you see the defensive potential pretty quickly when he gets on the floor.
Yeah, for sure. Could be a little bit of a Chris Boucher situation. I mean, look, Chris's story is so unique. There's no other person in the world that has that kind of story. But just like the late bloomer, had some injuries, maybe slid in the draft just because of that. And in any case, I'm rooting for DJ. And what do you think? I mean, the Raptors do have that open roster spot, which he's currently taking up the 15th roster spot. Shed some money in the Goran deal with Thad. Do you think he gets the 15th spot?
I mean, we'll see. Like today,
I'm pretty sure Champagne's going to get converted. So.
Yeah, so this is the thing. So today's the last day, first of all, for today's the eligibility deadline, not to sign a guy, but you got to be off an NBA roster by today.
So someone's got to get cut today.
So exactly. Today's the end of the buyout market candidates, if you want them to be playoff eligible. So the decision is going to come down to DJ Wilson or convert Justin Champagnie. And then you could sign someone into Champagnie's two-way, but it can't be DJ Wilson because he's played too long. It has to be another young guy that they like, or some other G leaguer that they potentially like. And we saw a couple guys shake free around the trade deadline, like a KZ Okpala, an Armani Brooks, guys who strike some Raptors chords. And maybe you just want a 10-day look at a bunch of guys, and then you make the decision in April and you sign them to, one of the benefits of the Raptors not only having room under the tax, but also having a chunk of their mid-level left is normally you can only sign a minimum guy to 2 years. If you wanted to, say, work out a 3-year deal with Champagnie or a 3-year deal with someone you pluck out of the G League, a Wilson or an Armani Brooks, whoever, you can use a little bit of that mid-level and go beyond 2 years. So that's and obviously this year would count as one of those years, but you do have the flexibility to go a little longer that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Damn. So they weren't kidding when they were like, we do value the flexibility.
I mean, we'll see if they use it. We'll see if they use it. Like,
they'll use it.
They're certainly they don't have a track record of like they're not going to Sam Presti someone with the 4-year.
The Lou Dort.
Yeah, the 4-year. Hey,
four-year vet minimum.
We'll give you a big splashy payment right out of the gate, but you're going to have a whole bunch of non-guaranteed years after that. Lou Dort's going to backfire though, because Lou Dort's got the weird Chandler Parsons thing where I believe there's a team option, so they're going to be faced with the decision of, do you decline the team option so he's RFA,
right,
or do you pick up the team option so you have one more year of him very cheap, but then he's UFA?
Yeah,
that's a tough one.
That's a tough one. Hey, salute to Chandler Parsons, by the way. He told a great Kobe story on the All the Smoke podcast. I've seen the clips all over the place, but it's genuinely really, really fun to listen to. I do enjoy a lot of these Kobe stories. All right, other news and notes to pass along. So OG Anunoby upgraded to questionable. Hey, this is great. So Nick Nurse said yesterday, and he said over the weekend, that OG had a special appointment to see a hand specialist in New York City. Even pregame when we talked to him, which was 6 o'clock, we were like, "Hey, what's the update with OG?" He said he still hasn't gone to the appointment, which is like, what clinic is open past 6 p.m.? But in any case, the news seems to be good because OG Anunoby has been upgraded to questionable. Clearly, this is not a situation where, it's not the worst case scenario, which you could have feared with an injury like this, where they reveal a small fracture on the finger and they could be out like 6 weeks, for example. Like a Chris Paul.
I guess, look, I'm not a doctor, obviously, and I have not examined OG's finger myself. You can see right here what happens when you don't have a finger.
Show that to the camera.
A finger fracture doesn't heal properly.
Lord.
It just never straightens out.
I got that too, actually.
But yeah, I think it's certainly encouraging that he got upgraded. My concern would be if the reason he got upgraded is because coming out of that meeting, they were like, well, it'll just heal on its own and you could play through it, but you're going to be playing with some discomfort.
Right.
That would not be the best thing, I don't think. We're talking about his ring finger on his dominant hand. You try to dribble that ball right now or shoot that ball. That's a pretty important thing. It's among your top 3 most important basketball fingers, I would say.
I would think so. Sure. Yeah. Let's do that.
Power rank which fingers you can get rid of.
Yeah.
I don't need my left pinky at all. I mean, you know my game. I don't dribble, so I might not need my left hand.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I mean, it is still pretty good news, I would think.
Yeah, I mean look,
I imagine they're probably gonna like tape it up every game. I don't think you can do that thing where you like tape the finger to another finger.
Not on your shooting hand.
Not in your shooting hand, yeah. So, but in any case, happy to see OG anytime. And Fred remains questionable with the knee thing. He sat out yesterday.
I'd lean towards sitting him again. Like not to. You don't want to overreact to.
No, but this is like a
perfect
matchup to play Malachi. 3 small guards on the other side, and one of them is Goran Dragic, who defensively yesterday. Oh my god.
Oh man,
There's a revolving door.
the
Man. It's an automatic door, actually. It just opens for you.
if there was, there's a couple ways to feel revenge towards someone, right? And if you're a Raptor fan, I think I think some people wanted to do the hey, someone cook them or something like that. Some people wanted to do the what do they say? The best revenge is living well or something like that. So you beat them with a big win. I think last night played out the most offensive way, where like you don't matter to this game at all. If he hadn't just been on the Raptors, you would not have noticed that Goran Dragic was in that game.
No.
And that is the most offensive thing you can do to an opposing player, I think, is not care about them at all.
I thought the most offensive thing was using your challenge up 28 points for Goran Dragic's one potential scoring play of the entire game. Shout out Nick Nurse, man. That's some pettiness right there. But hey, listen, like Chris Boucher was very close to taking that charge.
Coach the team.
Hey, listen, the coach is coaching the team. That's correct.
Yeah. So the other thing about Fred too is there's another back-to-back ahead somehow. Thursday, Friday.
Yes, I know.
So you sit him tonight, then he's got 4 days off. He's had a 4-day break before the next back-to-back.
Okay. Yeah.
I just assuming now that the rest of the schedule is infinite back-to-backs, and I haven't looked closely enough. But 3 in a row.
Yeah.
2-1, 2-1, 2 out of the break is not kind.
No, it's not. It's not. But at least the Raptors look to be progressing back towards health, which is good. I'm going to take that as a positive. Yeah, if they sit Fred again today, I don't think anyone have any issues with that. And yeah, so I wanted to finish the program today with a segment just on our favorite Raptors pet plays. You and I both watch the Raptors very closely. Anyone who watches the Raptors all the time knows that they don't have like an extensive playbook. I would say, like, I think a lot of it is like a read and react offense.
Especially with bench units. It's a lot of improvisation. Yeah.
Well, I mean, most teams in the NBA are this way now, too. Like, I'm not even saying that in a way that, like,
you
is
have
some
to
sort of
be. This is
pejorative.
why every team wants wings who can dribble and shoot and pass, right?
Yeah.
Is
the whole goal. This is what they're trying to do is that they can move towards this sort of motion offense, read and react,
and the less stuff that's scripted, then the easier it is for a guy to drop into a different position, right? You can go more positionless.
Yes, exactly. However, the Raptors do have pet plays, just as any team would, because you need to, right? Coming off an inbound, baseline out of bounds, late game scenarios, and then just, Nick Nurse being the quirky coach that he is, has some pet plays. So, I guess I probably could have done more work to put a video component to this, but unfortunately I didn't. But in any case, let's go through some of our favorite plays. We'll probably have some overlap here, but let's just start with your favorite pet Raptors play that you see them run on a semi-consistent basis.
Gary Trent isolation? No.
That's Gary's favorite play.
My favorite, and I've written about this play before. And I don't know if they still call it this, but at the time during the championship season, it was called 38 sweep. And it's that tunnel screen that they use at the end of quarters. So when they come up and they've got the pick and roll on the strong side, obviously, and then they line the 3 guys up on the weak side,
the football play kind of thing.
Yeah. So in football, that's called a tunnel screen. What those 3 guys do to set the screen for the one guy who's going to break off of that action, it's called a tunnel screen. You usually do it for a wide receiver at the start of a football play. And I wrote something about it for The Athletic that season because they were doing it a lot. They were basically spamming it with Norm Powell to see if it would work.
Right.
And they've continued to have it be a part of their package.
We saw it last night.
As an end of quarter thing. There was one, maybe it was the first game out of the All-Star break or the game right before the All-Star break where it totally got busted and the other team knew it was coming, but Siakam still got to the line out of it.
Right.
And that's a good progression of a play like that. At the time when I did the piece, it hadn't been very effective, but it's a really unique look. And like Nick Nurse hasn't hid that he's a fan of football and he's friends with Sean McVay and all this other stuff. I do think that there's real room for NBA coaches to borrow from other sports. Look at what a hockey team does on a power play with spacing or something like that, and vice versa. The fact that you get 5-on-4s in hockey and you can borrow from what basketball does to, free a guy like Steph Curry when you have an Austin Matthews on the power play or something like that.
They're running the elevator doors from Austin Matthews?
I mean,
that's
why
how
not?
Mitch Marner scored 4 goals on the weekend?
Let's see it. Run those elevator doors, yeah. So that's one of my favorites. I think it's so quirky. I think it's creative.
Is super weird.
I don't think it's very effective if we had the data on it, but it's a lot of fun. So yeah, tunnel screen, 38 sweep, whatever you want to call it.
Right. And as you're mentioning, that play, you have 3 guys on the left side of the floor, basically at half court. and then you have two bigs usually, and then a shooter coming off those screens. And I think the whole goal of that play, and the whole goal of most plays, is just to create spacing, right?
Or confusion.
Or confusion. And in that case, that play does create a lot of that, because that's not how you would normally line up in a way. But they used it. I think they used it in the Heat game as well. And Gary got downhill. I think Bam contested the layup, but Pascal was able to follow it up.
Yeah, Gary's the guy they run it for a lot now.
Yeah,
He took the norm spot on it because there is the option to come off of it and shoot at the top or catch and go.
Right.
So yeah, what about you? What's at the top of your list?
My favorite play for the Raptors that you see every single game 3 or 4 times is a baseline out of bounds, where Fred is usually the inbounder. Sometimes Gary's the inbounder, but this is a baseline inbound where they throw the pass to, usually if Fred's inbounding, he's throwing it to Gary around the elbow area. He's going to seal his man. Fred's going to pass it. And then Fred, after inbounding, he's going to sneak along the baseline where he's going to get 1, maybe 2 screens, come around the corner there, and then they're going to hit Fred popping to the corner. Basically a hammer action in a way. But it works all the time. Like, I'm not even kidding. It works at least once per game, sometimes twice per game. They run it for Gary as well. But basically, essentially, you're trying to get a 3-point shot off a screen in the corner. The thing is, I actually don't think Fred hits corner threes any other way in this whole season. So this is the most effective play to get him in that spot. But they run it to perfection. Sometimes I see teams snuff it out. It's not that uncommon of a play. It's not as quirky as the football play, but
it's more effective, though.
It's way more effective. Yeah, points per play on that play must be like 1 point plus.
I love that one. I think Fred's getting really good at the relocation stuff. I think that when you're running a baseline out of bounds, sometimes what's slept on is that, yes, the backboard and the baseline basically act as additional defenders because you can't use that, but they're also kind of areas of inattention.
Sure,
you can lose an inbounder
all the time
coming off of a screen like that. You could probably also cheat a little bit, like how you move along the baseline after you inbound the ball. Like I'd love to go back and look at some of those frame by frame. Do the like Kyle Lowry, the inbound on the OG buzzer beater in the bubble, where he's like way out of bounds, where like he'd be in the second row of seats, but there's no rule against it technically.
That's why the bubble's fake. Raptors still the champions.
Speaking of Kyle Lowry. One of my favorites, and the Raptors don't run it quite as much anymore. It's an old Kyle DeMar staple. We saw Malachi Flynn and Jalen Harris do it last year, and I lost my mind. It's called, so the Raptors have a series called Rip Punch, but the main one out of this, and you see it usually either very early in a clock or in semi-transition, is just Kyle was dribbling up the floor, DeMar would sprint, like he'd be kind of coming up the floor slow, and then all of a sudden there's a big at the elbow setting a screen for him.
Back screen,
He quickly runs around it, and there's a lob there. And Kyle and DeMar, I don't know how many times they did that play, like
all the time,
40 over their time. And so it's at least stayed in the playbook enough that the 905 use it. Malachi and Jalen connected on it in the NBA last year toward the end of the season. So I love that one. That's I love the kind of, and the Heat are great for this, is having something that's like, that's not a play that belongs to that player. That's a play that belongs to this team, right? And you can go back to when Nick Nurse first comes onto the coaching staff. And I don't know if it was a Nick Nurse designed play or it's just something that he liked and kept. But yeah, the fact that they still do that, 6-7 years in is awesome.
No, I do really enjoy that play. And the last one here that I have time for is just the Fred Pascal pick and roll. Like, it's super simple, but it's their best play. It's the play that they need to run when they are in crunch time, when they need a good bucket. And I prefer it more when it's Siakam handling and Fred screening. And obviously you can do the opposite as well, but I think with Fred screening, first off, he's a good screener, and then he flares out. He's a much better shooter than Pascal. So the threat of him popping and flaring out is much more substantial. And at that point, you just read and react to what happens. If they switch that matchup, Pascal gets to attack a small guy, or even you can give to Fred to attack a big, although I think Pascal attacking is better. If you double team, Fred's going to get the open 3 usually, right? Because Pascal's going to put the pass over the top. And to be honest, hedging is probably the best way to stop that, but Pascal's able to punch the gap there sometimes, and it's just their best play in crunch time.
Yeah, there's also an element to that too, where it's not pistol, but it's like they treat it like a pistol high up the floor, where OG's ready to set a back screen, and they do that kind of Fred Pascal pitch at the top, and they spammed it against Miami because they kept getting Tyler Hero on it, and yeah. So I mean, anything involving your 2 best players is going to be fun, but they've spammed that in crunch time as they should.
Yes. All right, that does it for us today. I'm your host, Willow, and you've been listening to The Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. Make sure you find The Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review our show. Reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and on Sportsnet 360 Monday to Friday between 2 and 3 p.m. Thanks to our guest, Blake Murphy, to our board producer, Derek Vandale, and Jennifer Rolnick for helping us behind the scenes with the YouTube stream, and I will talk to you soon.